Alex, I think we have a bigger topic to talk about now. The World Cup in Qatar. We had our first official protest of the event. Team Denmark. I don't know the best way to describe it would be like what plain matte unbranded jerseys.
Yes,
It's
yeah,
it's
that's the matted plain jersey.
exactly, and it's a statement of protest. They don't exactly want to boycott the event. They're going with the attitude of let the athletes compete because this is what they've worked for. Um,
Which I think is a little that's hollow. I mean, then just wear the freaking patch. Like you obviously have no problem going, so just put on the freaking
well,
patch. Like you're not
and
changing anything.
no, that's fair. Alex, let's take a step back for a second though. What with this World Cup, not that the World Cup is ever not controversial, but what is more controversial with this World Cup for our listeners who are not sure?
Sure, and this has been a long simmering problem since this World Cup was awarded to Qatar. Certainly, there's the whole FIFA thing and how this was a Qatari officials essentially bribed FIFA, and that's what ultimately ousted Sepp Blatter. That had been in
Yes,
the works for a
they
long time.
basically so FIFA was bribed for Qatar to hold the event. Obviously, Qatar is not due to the time the World Cup normally takes place in the summer. The climate conditions are not optimal, so they had to bribe FIFA, and then of course move the event to December. Alex, sorry, continue.
Right. And so the Qataris, they have to build all of this construction, they brought in thousands of migrant workers, primarily from the Indian subcontinent area, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. More than 6,500 of them have died building World Cup facilities in Qatar. How the Qatar construct, how these contracts and how these workers, when they get to Qatar, they are prevented from leaving. Oftentimes, their employers take their passports. They're not allowed out of the country. They withhold wages from them. And the world more or less hasn't cared for the last decade about this. And it's an abomination, John.
Alex, I mean, you hit it right on the money. It's nothing but an abomination. I mean, FIFA as an organization is normally an abomination in itself, but this isn't particularly disgusting. I mean, revelation that's transpired with the World Cup. And the World Cup is an event that has so much prestige. For a lot of players, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity in the sense that they get to represent their country and compete for the biggest prize that they've been dreaming about since they were kids. And that brings us really to the next question, Alex. Given that this is an event with that kind of prestige and that kind of legacy, what should fans, what should teams, what should players do? I mean, is it enough to just not watch this event?
So, I mean, for me personally, I will not be watching. I enjoy the World Cup. I'm not a soccer man. You know that about me, but I do really enjoy watching the World Cup. Just because it's this kind of like the Olympics. It's this one event that the entire world is watching and taking in. So you kind of take it in together, and that's what's really cool about it. And that's what I like it. However, like I morally, at least for me, like I cannot I just can't give this my attention enjoyment, knowing, you know, a first the human cost of all of these stadiums,
The staggering human cost and
staggering
the
human cost. That's it's the fact that no one stepped in and we can't do this, Qatar. We got to pull back. They've had 12 years to figure this out and pull away from it, and there was never any serious effort by people who could make those decisions to even think about it.
absolutely
So
no 100%. And like there have been plenty of countries that have stepped in and said that we have the infrastructure to host it. And that's personally why, like, and I've stated this before in like my personal groups, like my personal friend groups and stuff. Like Alex, you know this. This is the first World Cup Canada's qualified for in 36 years. I'm perfectly fine if they boycott and pull out. Like I know at this stage they're not going to, and I totally get why. I don't necessarily agree with the reasoning, but if it was up to me and I was running the FAs of these nations, I'd pull out. Like what? This is ridiculous. Like guys, like you're gonna boycott a Super League, but this is okay? What? You
mhm.
fucking kidding me?
Right. And so that I guess like raises the larger question, John, of it seems like since this World Cup was awarded in 2010, correct me if I'm wrong, in
In
around
that
that time.
neighborhood, yes. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, but in that neighborhood. I can check it up right
So
now.
in that time, in 2008, China hosts the Summer Olympics, Russia has the Sochi Olympics, and then China's had the Winter Olympics again as well. And so it seems like at least a lot of these international sporting events, at least in this century, have been the term is sports washing campaigns by these very illiberal, authoritarian countries. And when it comes to the Winter Olympics, like I think climate change, and we can talk about that too, but just with climate change and the having the infrastructure, the Winter Games is becoming more and more infeasible.
No, 100%. And I think really to like refer back to the World Cup, like where this really relates is to your point about like only authoritarian governments hosting the Olympics. Is this really like the Olympics where people are going to be okay? And I'd argue with the Olympics, it's getting to a point where people are not okay with it. But our
Yes,
people
yeah,
are
I think the
going
Olympics is definitely, and
trending.
this is more of a one-off with the World Cup, even though Brazil was kind of a cluster bleep. Building,
Most
build,
Alex, you got to remember, most of the World Cups are really a problem because the FIFA expects to just basically reap all the profits, force these nations to potentially even change laws. Like in Brazil, for example, they couldn't drink beer during the World Cup, but ended up doing
yep.
it. And it's just all revenue driven. And my point was, are we okay turning a blind eye to let these athletes compete just because they've worked their hardest and separate it from the politics? And I think it's hitting a point where, I agree with you. I don't know if we can. Like, this is really far exceeding, I think, anyone's expectation to what the human cost of this would be and the moral cost of what this would be like, really for entertainment.
And I think the Olympic athletes may have a stronger case to let them compete because these are people from every nation on earth coming or who qualify coming to participate in sports that never really get any um real public consumption other than at the Olympics. So
I don't
soccer, most of these soccer players, they're well compensated and they play on very, very high levels.
Well,
And
some of
and
them. I
some of
to
them.
a degree, to a degree, like a lot of them, like, and that's why you're seeing teams not boycott more. It's because like this is for a lot of these players on smaller nations, like this is their one opportunity to get that chance to play against world-class players and get on that stage. But like I said, like I don't know if it's enough to outweigh the human cost of this tournament.
Right. And just a quick note on the Olympics, just because I mentioned climate change. This is a NPR story. By the year 2080, John, if uh, climate change and the climate crisis is not curtailed, and that's comes with reducing CO2 emissions, but by 2080, 20 of the last 21 cities that previously hosted a Winter Olympics would not be able to host in the Winter Olympics based on the trajectory of the climate crisis. So something to keep in mind if your country wants to get the Winter Olympics, do it now.